Hello everybody. How are you guys doing today? Hi. And welcome to another video. Well, today's video will be one that has been requested by a bunch of you guys. It has been probably the most asked about topic that I have had in a long time, and it is going to be how to color your drawings on the computer. This one, I'm going to try to make it really broad and very, simple, so that you guys can take this knowledge and apply it to all the different types of design software that there is. So it'll work for Photoshop, it'll work for Manga Studio, it'll work for Sketchbook Pro, Paint Sci, and pretty much Mischief, Procreate, pretty much every other program that you can possibly think of. So let's get started. And for this type of tutorial, the first thing you're going to need is going to be some line work. To save a lot of time, I already chose the drawing that I want to use. Something simple so we can keep it nice. Something simple so we can keep it super simple and quick and be able to actually get through this without having like a million-hour tutorial. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to set up a couple layers. Okay, we're going to have our line work layer that's going to be all the way at the top, and we're going to have our color layer, which is going to be underneath. So first you're going to go into your line work layer, and then you're going to lock it. This feature is in every single design software, so don't worry too much about it. Then the next step up is going to be our color layer. You're going to double click on it, name it color. Since this one is the first one's locked, now you can go into your second layer and choose a brush, something really big, and well, probably not black. We're going to go with like a pink. Yeah, we're going to go with pink. And we're just going to fill in every inch of the drawing. You can use the bucket fill tool as well, but I like just making sure that my hand covers everything. Now, you can go back to your line work layer, use the magic wand tool, or in this case, in this program it's called auto select. You're going to go back to your line work, select outside of the line work, and you see how it's like a big selection that's going around the whole thing. Make sure you get all the little open holes. Go back to your original, or to the color. You're going to go to selection, expand the area that you selected so it digs into the little black lines, so it gets rid of a lot of the little artifacts that are going to be left out if you don't. You click expand by 2 pixels. That feature is also in every single design software. You just got to find where it is. Clear it, just delete it, and then we have our base layer. Base layer of color. Now, a simple way to go about this is to just lock this layer too, and then by doing, you can lock the pixels, lock the transparency, not lock it. Locking it makes it so you can't edit it. Locking the transparency allows you to still edit it, but let me show you what it does. Let's say I choose a different color. And I start painting inside. Now if I go towards the edge, See how it doesn't paint outside of it? So it lets you just be able to play around within that little area that you did without having to worry too much about going outside of it. So we're going to set our base colors within this base layer, and then little details like the eyes and everything like that is going to go in a separate layer, just to simplify things. So I'm going to select the color of the monster-ish. I'm going to go with a little bit lighter. And I'm going to start adding little details like the stripes of the tail. Good. So you have two different colors right here as well. If you select the other one and select back to the original color, you can switch back and forth from them and then just correct little mistakes. For example, here I saw that it was too close to where the hand ended, so I didn't want that tangent. So I just pushed it out a little bit more. Let's make that like that. Just make sure you get the layers, the colors how you want them. And that should work. So little stripes. Let's make, some actual fur patches. And it's going to resemble my little red panda that I always like to do. You guys might be wondering, Rod, how come you always draw all your animals and monsters with stripes? Well, it's a pretty interesting story. I got the whole idea from a girl that I used to know. She is an amazing artist on her own. Her name is Lauren Heston. And she had so much imagination. And she had remember when we used to talk, she used to draw these little monsters that had little striped horns, and it was just super cute monsters. They all had their names, they all had their personalities. And she was so involved in them. And her stories behind them were great, and it was just really, 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 really refreshing to see somebody that still had so much passion over their work. And that kind of stuck with me over the years. We still talk, we still run on ideas amongst each other, and this is just a little ode, or a little tribute to her and all the inspiration that she ever brought me, which is a lot. A lot of the people around me are the ones that inspire me to do different things. Being by myself, I'm a very creative person, and I can come up with ideas on the fly and not have to worry too much about needing inspiration and all that, like I've talked in my other videos. But whenever you do meet the few people that actually give you inspiration, don't let them go. Those people will be some of the best people you can ever have in your life. Alright, we're going to make the stripes for the horns. When it comes down to coloring areas, I always like to draw through them. I find, especially with digital coloring, it makes it so your lines are a little bit more fluid. If you start going in, just trying to do little tiny strokes for each thing, it tends to give you a very jaggedy edge. So just make broad strokes and then go in and delete the parts you don't need. Also, trying to be absolutely perfect with every stroke is going to be hard, and it's going to make you take forever on your illustrations. So don't try to be perfect. Just try to get something that looks really good, and then you can just build off that, later on. Your favorite, best tools that you might want to have as shortcuts when it comes down to coloring in this way is going to be your eye picker tool, your eyedropper, or color picker, or whatever it's called in each individual program. In this case, it's the eyedropper tool right here. I have it, so my Cintiq picks it up with just a click of the pen, so I can select different colors on the spot, on the fly. So I don't need to go back and select it and everything like that. It saves me a lot of time. Some example, like here I can just fill in this area. Instead of having to go all the way back here to click it, I just click my button. It switches my color. And then I can just do that. Let's also give them darker ears. Let's to add a little contrast to the head. Like I said, these little techniques, they can be done in every single software that you find out there. Let's make these bigger. There you go. And then I can just bring this in. Okay, that looks a little better to me. We have the base coat of everything laid out. Maybe we want to add the black parts of the horns to the base. And this is anything with black would normally be already set up into the line work layer. So example, Manga Studio, even if you lock the pixels, you can still go in and delete pixels, which is weird, because that kind of defeats the purpose of locking pixels. But you can do it, and you just have to unlock it, redraw them, and then go back and do them again. Okay, so we have our base layer done. Now we're going to start adding little details. So we're going to make a new layer on top of it, and in this case in point, I'm going to start adding the white for the eyes, the white for the teeth, the little white in the highlight of the nose, and then maybe the hinges. And let's see, no, maybe nails. Okay, super loose, super simple. If you see little details that you want to make sure that they're there. Okay, so we have that. I see that this is a little uneven. There you go. Let's see. I kind of want to make these the dark color, just so they contrast. So you can just go in, change them. What I did right there was I selected, we have this thing called the bucket fill tool. with that one is wonderful because you can select it, and whatever color you choose, it's going to select any area of pixels that are similar to that color. So in that case I did that, but I wanted them in this little brownish color. And I'm also gonna change, not that one, change these two, and I have to do this one manually. Because it's connected to the other colors. Okay. And so it doesn't contrast too much. Gotta change it. You gotta change the stripe pattern so it doesn't blend in with my other color. Ideally, you don't want to have too many parts of the same color next to each other, just, you know, for aesthetic's sake. So we want to make sure that this stripe doesn't touch the hand. So we're going to expand it a little bit. Okay. And then maybe a little still, just to make sure that it shows that the pattern is continuing. And then just adjust the other ones to make sure it looks fine. Okay, so we have that, we have this, we have the base colors done. Okay, so now we can go into the other little details. The detail layer, and then for this belly part, I want just something around the same color ranges as these, but just a little darker. So it shows that it's still within the belly. And right now we're not going to worry about shading or any detail like that. We'll worry about that in a little bit, and I'll show you guys how. Just make sure that you have a decent contrast with places that are supposed to be darker, because that way you give an indication of light and shadow before even adding lights and shadows. That color pick the white real quick. And just fill in the colors. Yeah. So just little tiny little things like changing to a slightly darker gray inside of these little detailed lines. Something as simple as that will add a little bit more coolness factor to the design. Okay, take this one, make this one up top. Okay, so we have our basic character down. So if we delete the color layer, or the base layer, it's gonna look like that. Just look for any imperfections. If you need to zoom in, make sure to zoom in. Just to see. If you zoom in, you start seeing little mistakes that are fixable. This one's in detail layer. Nope. Just go in and fix those little mistakes. This one's missing a little bit of coloring. This one too. And then just pan across the whole thing. Let's look over here. Okay. So A little bit of color that we need to fix. Fix. Okay. Alright. Let's see. Fix something right here. Okay. Boom. Right here as well. We see a little tiny bit coming outside. And the tail's going to have a little bit of details because I just kind of scribbled it in. Okay. Then right here. Okay, so we have most of our detail set in stone. Okay, we went back in, we changed all the little detail, so we should be good in that sense. So now what we want to do is we're going to start adding coloring. No, we're going to add shading. Highlights and shadows. I always go with my shadows first. So we're going to go back, and on top of this detail layer, we're going to make another layer. And we're going to drop the opacity down to about 30%. We're going to select the darkest color that we have in the illustration, and we're going to go slightly darker than that. I don't like going with just black because it doesn't look great. It just gives it like a very muted, coloring to your design, and it just looks bad. First, you're going to decide on where your light source is going to be. For me, it's going to be coming from this direction. And then just playing off basic shapes, start coloring, doing your shadows. So if the light comes here, and this is where the basic knowledge comes in. I see a lot of people that start off, because I know I was one of them. I didn't know how lighting worked, and I would just kind of fill in areas and then just, hope that it looked good. And sometimes I would copy, other people's, shading, but I wouldn't know how they got to that point. It would just be a matter of, just doing it and then just, hoping it looked good and nobody noticed that I didn't really know what I was doing. So my suggestion would be to pick up some life drawing classes, some still life classes, and learn a little bit more about what light actually does and how to capture that with your artwork. Even for something as simple as this, it's just a super basic little monster. It doesn't exist in real life, so I have to be able to fake all the lighting that's going into them. But knowing, having the knowledge of just basic shapes and basic shading with basic shapes helps a millionfold. And as you can see, once again, I'm drawing through the object, through it, and then I'm just going to do the selection of the base layer so I can delete everything that I don't need again. Okay. Okay, super basic shading. Maybe this would be a little bit more. You gotta see the things that are casting shadows. So this head is casting a shadow over the body, so you gotta make sure that you draw that in. The arm and the back are casting a shadow over the back tail, so you have to make sure that that's in. You know, everything is casting a shadow over the feet, so maybe this one has a little bit of light, maybe on the edges, but not too much. Okay, the horns also are casting a little bit of shadow. Let's see. This one, the light is hitting, it'll be like right here. And the shadows would be like maybe. Even I doubt myself a lot of times. You know, I'm not a huge, like I'm not a amazing lighting person. I've taken, you know, basic classes so I can understand a little bit. But even I get it wrong a lot of the times. If you saw some of the artists that I work with, and all they do is, you know, focus on lighting, life drawing, those guys are amazing. That's all they like to do. And no one can blame them for being fucking awesome, right? Okay, let's see. Little tiny things like the shadow that the eyes have inside, right? The nose, maybe even a couple indications of fur. But let's stick away from super fine detail. The backside of the eyes. And if you see that it's not showing too much, just go up a little bit in opacity. It's creating a tangent right here, so I'm just gonna expand this a little bit more. Okay, shadow right here. So we have that. I'm gonna change the back stripes to white, just because I think I like that color more. This one's looking a little bit weird, so I'm gonna start over from this section. If you have to reselect the color, go back to full opacity, and let's see. Technically, it would be lit up right there. And then it would be lit up a little bit on both sides. Okay, I'll go back to 30-ish or so. Okay. So simple like that. Probably looks better. Okay, so now that we have our shadows, we want to delete everything around, like all the shadows that we don't need. So we're going to select the outside again, go back to our layer, and delete it. So now we only have it within. We're going to make a layer on top of everything, and we're going to use white for highlights. Highlights and shadow. A really quick thing. Highlights give an object texture. Shadows give an object form. So if you need to make something super shiny, you give it specular highlights. You know, like super bright, super condensed highlights. That would be the eyes, that would be, and if we wanted to make the eyes shinier, we need to increase the shadow inside of them so that the highlight can do its job. You'll see what I mean in a second. So if we make that, adding highlights to it, actually it makes it look shinier even though we made it darker. So let's do them proper. See what I mean? So let's see what other parts need highlights. Probably, I mean, you can always add highlights to the actual character, like this. You know, a lot of people like to make their character shiny, but he's fur, so it wouldn't be that strong of a highlight. Maybe if we drop the opacity of the brush a little bit. Even more. Let's see. Yeah, something like that would be better. You might drop the opacity a little bit more still. Because right now it's just kind of changing the the look of the fur. Okay. Oh, there we go. That doesn't look bad. Okay, well, let's leave it at that. I also don't like making my highlights at 100%. Just drop it down to like 50, 60, or whatever looks right for you. So now that we have essentially our finished design, you can just do the same thing. We're going to go back, select around the base layer, and then we're going to delete everything around it. Boom. Okay. The highlights are also going over the lines, so we can go back to our line layer, select all the line work, and then clear it from the highlights. That way your lines stay nice and crisp. Now from this point on, you can add, little more details if you really wanted to. Like for example in the belly, maybe you want to add like, some extra detail. That's why. My brush was still at 40% of 20% opacity. That's why it didn't show up right. Just little tiny details like cross hatching can go in at this point in time. But for the general idea of coloring, we're pretty much done. The last thing I'd like to do is to go back to my line work layer, unlock it, lock the transparency on it so I can color the lines, select the darkest color that I have here, go a little bit darker, and then for each one of these areas, just color the lines so it's not a black line. What this does is it brings out the colors a little bit more. Black lines are all fine and dandy, but they're overrated. Personally, I like having, since I still like having black lines at some points of it. You'll see. You know, like the stomach right here has to be black. The nose and the eyes probably have to be black. The horns, well, probably keep them black as well. And that'll bring a little bit of highlight to those areas. So for the belly, we're just going to make sure that it's still black. The shadow. Will still be black. The hinges will still be black. And you can zoom in if you really need to and just, you know, make sure that all the lines that you want to be black stay black. And all the lines that don't want to be black, they can change color. But I think I'm liking it like this. So, for basic coloring, that's pretty much all you really need to know. You can go back in and add extra things, like I did, and I'm going to show you guys roughly what the things that I added. So, first things first, let's reposition this to get a better composition. Noticing that the highlights on the tail, the shadows are too much. Okay, there you go. So little extras that I like to do with my drawings sometimes is give them a textured background. I like textured backgrounds. With the contrast with my little characters, it normally makes them look better. I like to give them borders. And then for this one, I'm just going to give it a little thought bubble, because the idea behind this is butterflies flying from your stomach, you know, like little butterflies. And then I drew butterflies. Need to scale them down a little bit to make them look like they're coming out of the belly. Right? You can always add slight background, you know, so your character doesn't look like he's floating in the air, which is probably a good idea. It doesn't have to be something super difficult, just something as simple as an indication of a background. And we're going to give him something on his thought bubble. In this case, it's going to be a little heart. God, you can draw a whole array of things perfect, but I can't draw a heart. Like, 10-year-old me would be so disappointed. You're a professional illustrator and you can't draw a heart properly. But I also like not making everything super happy. So he's going to have a broken heart. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Well, that concludes today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you guys actually learned a little bit, be it just how simple it can be to actually do an illustration, or, you know, everything in between. Let's see. Just gonna select everything. I'm just gonna resize things. Okay. But you guys have a wonderful day. thank you so much for watching again. I'm going to try to upload more videos more often. It seems like this one took a while to come out, mostly because I bit a little bit more that I could chew with a different video that I was doing. I was trying to make a video for CTN, and I got a little bit of footage, but in the end, it ended up being a lot of footage that I couldn't really use. Not because, copyrights or anything. It was just a lot of footage that the sound didn't work properly, and it was just a pain in the butt. So I'm probably not going to do that one. But anyways, no excuses. I'm going to try to post more often. Thank you guys for watching. You guys are the best. I hope you guys have a wonderful night, and check out other videos that I have, just if you guys want to learn some other things. There's a bunch of different stuff about living as an artist, how to get money, how to get jobs, how to make your own, get your own style, how to keep your sketchbook properly, etc., etc. So check them out. Throw a like if you guys like. Subscribe if you haven't. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.